These are 10 classic Hollywood stars who earned millions at their peak, but died with almost nothing in their bank accounts. From Judy Garland's $40,000 estate to Bobby Driscoll, found dead in an abandoned tenement, these stories reveal the dark side of the golden age of Hollywood's glittering facade. When we think of classic Hollywood, we picture glamour, wealth, and endless success. But behind the glittering facade of the studio system lay a brutal reality that chewed up some of the industry's biggest names and spat them out, broken and penniless. These weren't minor players or forgotten faces. These were A-list legends who commanded top dollar and drew millions to movie theaters worldwide. Yet despite earning fortunes that would be worth hundreds of millions today, they all shared the same tragic fate, dying broke, forgotten, and betrayed by the very system that made them famous. Let's start with the most heartbreaking case of all, Judy Garland, the girl who sang Over the Rainbow in The Wizard of Oz and captured America's heart, was earning more than $400,000 in movie salaries before she even turned 18. Throughout her career, she made nearly $10 million, which translates to roughly $100 million in today's money. But when she was found dead in her bathroom in 1969, at just 47 years old, her estate was worth a measly $40,000, equivalent to about $260,000 today. How does someone lose that much money? Judy's story is a textbook case of exploitation by the very people who should have protected her. Her agents, Freddie Fields and David Begelman, mismanaged her finances so catastrophically that they essentially embezzled much of her earnings. The Internal Revenue Service came after her for around $500,000 in back taxes. That's $3.6 million in today's money. They placed liens on her Brentwood home, her recording contract with Capitol Records, and any other business deals she could have profited from. She was forced to sell her beautiful Brentwood home for far below its actual value, leaving her in such desperate financial straits that she was essentially living paycheck to paycheck, despite being one of the most recognizable faces in America. The cruel irony is that CBS had offered Garland $24 million, equivalent to $190 million today, for a weekly television series in the early 1960s. But by then, her reputation for unreliability, fueled by years of substance abuse and mental health struggles, made such opportunities increasingly rare. When she died, her daughter Liza Minnelli had to work with family friend Frank Sinatra to help pay off her mother's debts. In 1978, almost a decade after Judy's death, her ex-husband, Sidney Luft, auctioned off her personal belongings. Everything from copper cookware to musical arrangements, just to raise $250,000 for her children. Mickey Rooney's story is equally devastating, made worse by the fact that he lived to be 93 and suffered financial abuse right until the end. This was a man who had been the #1 box office attraction from 1939 to 1941. One of the highest-paid actors of his era. His career spanned an incredible 88 years, yet when he died in 2014, his estate was valued at just $18,000. Think about that for a moment. Nearly 9 decades in show business, and he left behind less money than most people have in their checking accounts. Rooney's financial troubles weren't just about bad investments or lavish spending, though he certainly had both. He filed for bankruptcy twice, first in 1962 and again in 1996. His gambling habit was legendary. He would gamble away his fortune again and again, as one reporter put it. But the most heartbreaking aspect of his later years was the elder abuse he suffered at the hands of his 8th wife and her son, Christopher Aber. They allegedly funneled money from Rooney's earnings to support their own lavish lifestyle while Mickey endured beatings, humiliation, and poverty. In 2011, he testified before a Senate committee detailing how his money had been stolen and his life controlled. The Hollywood Reporter would later write that one of the biggest stars of all time, who remained aloft longer than anyone in Hollywood history, was in the end brought down by those closest to him. He died humiliated and betrayed, nearly broke and often broken. The only significant asset in Rooney's estate was a $2.86 million judgment against his stepson from the elder abuse lawsuit, money that Christopher Aber has yet to pay a single cent of, maintaining his innocence to this day. Buster Keaton's fall from grace represents one of the most tragic artistic destructions in Hollywood history. In the 1920s, while working for various studios, including RKO Pictures, Keaton was earning $3,500 per week. That's about $60,000 per week in today's money. He was so wealthy that he spent $300,000, equivalent to $6 million today, building an elaborate mansion in Beverly Hills, complete with a regulation baseball diamond, where he hosted games with other Hollywood stars. But Keaton made what he would later call the worst business decision of his life when he signed with MGM and Nornex. Dr. Brian Key in 28, where studio mogul Louis B. Mayer and his executives stripped away all creative control. Charlie Chaplin had warned him, "Don't do it. They'll destroy you helping you. They'll warp your judgment. You'll get tired of arguing for things you know are right." Chaplin was prophetic. MGM turned the innovative genius behind classics like The General and Sherlock Jr. into just another contract player. Then came the stock market crash of 1929, which devastated Keaton's finances from his independent productions. His wife, Natalie Talmadge, refused to cut back on her extravagant spending and divorced him in 1932, taking most of his estate and custody of their children. When MGM fired him in 1933 after catching him hosting a wild party in his dressing room, his way of coping with the creative suffocation, Keaton was finished. He filed for bankruptcy in 1934 with only $12,000 in assets, and the Internal Revenue Service was demanding $28,000 in back taxes. The most tragic part? When Keaton's career was collapsing, the studio told him they were reclaiming the silver out of the copies of these films. Nearly all of his cinematic masterpieces were destroyed for their silver content. Only by luck did actor James Mason later discover pristine prints hidden in a walled-up projection room of a house he'd purchased, saving Keaton's legacy for future generations. Veronica Lake's story shows how quickly Hollywood could discard its stars. The actress with the iconic peekaboo hairstyle, hair so influential that U.S. officials asked her to change it during World War II because they feared it might cause workplace accidents among women on assembly lines, went from major star to cocktail waitress in just a few years. In 1951, the Internal Revenue Service seized Lake's home due to unpaid taxes, and she filed for bankruptcy. After her third divorce, she drifted between cheap hotels in New York City, getting arrested multiple times for public drunkenness and disorderly conduct. In 1962, a New York Post reporter found her working as a waitress in the cocktail lounge of the Martha Washington Hotel in Manhattan, living upstairs in the all-women's residence. Lake vehemently denied that she was destitute, stating, "It's as though people were making me out to be down and out. I wasn't. I was paying $190 a month rent then, and that's a long way from being broke." But the damage to her reputation was done. When fans sent her money after the story ran, she returned it as a matter of pride. She died at 50 in 1973 from hepatitis and acute kidney injury, her ashes sitting unclaimed in a funeral home for nearly 3 years. because of confusion over an unpaid cremation bill. She kept one uncashed check, $1,000 from former lover Marlon Brando, but never cashed it. Bela Lugosi's financial situation was dire from the start. The man who immortalized Dracula on screen received only $500 per week for the 7-week engagement on the 1931 film, a total of just $3,500 for the role that would define him forever. Unlike other horror stars who parlayed their iconic roles into lasting wealth, Lugosi was typecast so severely that he could barely find other work. When he died of a heart attack at 73 in 1956, Lugosi left only $1,000 cash to his son and several inexpensive pieces of real estate. Contrary to popular myth, Frank Sinatra didn't pay for his funeral. That story came from Rat Pack member Joey Bishop incorrectly stating it on a talk show. In reality, Lugosi's wife Lillian paid for the funeral, and his ex-wife Hope paid for the casket. Sinatra's only connection was sending the aging actor a $1,000 check during his drug rehabilitation. Lugosi was buried in full Dracula costume at Holy Cross Cemetery in Culver City, a fitting but melancholy end to a career that had brought him more fame than fortune. Bobby Driscoll's story might be the most tragic of all because it involves a child star discarded by the system that created him. Disney's first contract player, Driscoll was earning $1,750 a week at his peak, more than $22,000 a week in today's money. He was the voice and animation model for Peter Pan, won an Academy Juvenile Award, and seemed destined for a lifetime of success. But as Driscoll entered his mid-teens in the early 1950s, Disney dropped him without ceremony. Puberty had changed his appearance, and the studio simply had no more use for him. "I've found that memories are not very useful," he would later say. "I was carried on a silver platter and then dumped into the garbage can." Driscoll struggled with drug addiction and was incarcerated for drug possession in 1961. He moved to New York in 1965, hoping to restart his career, and even became part of Andy Warhol's art collective, The Factory, in Greenwich Village. But it was too little, too late. In March 1968, his body was found in an abandoned East Village tenement. He died penniless and alone at just 31 years old. The most heartbreaking detail? His identity wasn't confirmed until a year and a half later, when his fingerprints were finally matched to old studio records after his parents asked authorities to search for him. He was buried in an unmarked pauper's grave at Hart Island, New York's Potter's Field. The public didn't even know of his death until 1972, when Song of the South was re-released and reporters investigated what had happened to the child star. Billie Holiday's final moments capture the cruel irony of her situation perfectly. When the legendary jazz singer died at 44 in 1959, she had just 70 cents in her bank account, but there was also $750 in cash taped to her leg, money she'd saved to tip the hospital nurses who had cared for her. Even in her final poverty, Holiday was thinking of others. Holiday's financial struggles weren't just about poor money management. As a former convict, she was stripped of her cabaret performer's license and wasn't allowed to sing anywhere that alcohol was served, which included virtually every jazz club in America. Her abusive husband had progressively swindled her out of her earnings in her final years. There wasn't enough money for her funeral, so it was paid for by a wealthy fan who recognized her genius even when the industry had abandoned her. The stories continue with similar patterns of exploitation and abandonment. Sammy Davis Jr., despite earning millions annually, died owing $7 million in taxes. Omar Sharif, the suave star of Lawrence of Arabia, lost $1 million in a single night of gambling and spent his final years living in hotels, claiming he was all alone and completely broke and owned nothing besides some clothes. What connects all these stories isn't just financial ruin, it's systemic exploitation. The classic Hollywood studio system paid stars a fraction of what their films generated. Judy Garland earned $500 per week for The Wizard of Oz, while her male co-stars earned considerably more. These contracts didn't include royalties, so even when their films continued making money for decades, the stars saw nothing.